September 11th, 2024. If we could do a roll call.
Sure. Brad Freese.
Here.
Thomas Bradford.
Here.
Russ Redmond.
Here.
Clay Damon. Jill Wenta.
Here.
Michelle Scharouse.
Here's Clay.
Wade Chance.
Here.
And Clay has just arrived.
Okay. Approval of agenda. I did have an addition. Does anyone have additions, deletions, modifications to the agenda? Okay, I do have an addition. This, all of us have seen before. This is the citizens survey, but it's just the question that's relevant to us. And thank you. I don't think it made it into the agenda, so I didn't print it for everyone. This will come up later in the meeting. So if I could get a motion.
Can I ask you a question before we do that? Sure. I believe you saw an email from the Jupiter Narrows over the last few days.
Yes.
Is that something we want to talk about?
It's in the agenda.
It's on the agenda?
Yeah,
Oh, I
under,
missed it. Okay.
Under new business.
New business.
New business was what we couldn't get to last week.
Ah, okay. All right, perfect.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as admitted, submitted with the addition of the item pertaining to the environmental matters in the citizen survey.
I second.
All right, motion carries. Communication from citizens, I don't see anyone, so we will, now fortunately, we have a presentation from the Loxahatchee River Environmental Control District, Executive Director, Dr. Albrey Arrington. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
The name, yeah. So I'm Albrey Arrington. I'm the Executive Director of Loxahatchee River District. Are you Jess Redmond?
Yeah, I am.
Jess is an awesome person.
Yeah.
Anyways, Executive Director of Loxahatchee River District. Born and raised in Jupiter and went to undergrad at University of Florida, and then worked at Water Management District on the Kissimmee River restoration for about 5 years. Left and went to grad school at Texas A&M. Heard got some Texas people up here, digging mags. And left there. I was a professor at University of Alabama, so I'm all SEC. And was enjoying Alabama and the whole professor gig, and just missed home. My brothers would call me and taunt me with living in paradise and that I was a loser in Texas. And so here I am. Loxahatchee River District is unique. I like to tell friends who are still in academia that I literally have the dream job of an academic scientist. So I get my day in and day out worry is preserving and protecting the river that I grew up in, that I learned to swim in, that I've fished in all my life, and that's also a National Wild and Scenic River. And so I'm not a normal person who manages a wastewater utility. Typically those are engineers. I'm an environmental scientist. I generally consider myself an aquatic ecologist. But the governing board, both 18 years ago whenever I was hired and even today, is particularly mindful of the natural system that we work within, and that the work that we do, we want it to be contextual to being in the watershed of a national wild and scenic river. And so I like to say that we don't have to cheat our customers to stay in business, and we have the luxury of doing really good work and doing it really well. And so we're proud of that. So I do have some slides for you. I'm fine with questions, interruptions, I don't care. I did this picture just because it's always nice to be reminded that there is a wastewater utility in town. Having grown up in Jupiter literally my entire life, the only time that I was aware the district existed was as like an early teenager sneaking in through the back fence to go fishing in the reclaimed water ponds. And I had no idea why the ponds existed. I just knew that there were really big bass in there. So it's funny, it is, We're proud of the work that we do and the facility we have. We have about $180 million of assets. A lot of them are underground, out of sight, out of mind. But this is the wastewater treatment facility. I love talking about wastewater, so if you guys any questions you have on wastewater, I'm cool with that. One of the questions, so Jay was fortunate to give me a list of questions that he thought y'all would be interested in, and one was what's up with neighborhood sewering. And this was the oldest, this is so high tech, right? This is like pitiful. So this map was done in roughly 2003, and it was a retrospective on areas that we had already converted from septic to sewer. And you can see the light blue was 1970s, the light green is 1980s, the pink or magenta is 2000 to 2002, and then the black there is 2003. Sewer. The only homes east of 95 in our service area that do not have a sewer connection are basically on private roads, and so that we do not have the legal ability to deliver sewer to. There are a lot of homes on private roads who we have provided sewer to because they've said, hey, can we get access, and we work with them to provide that. So then the only meaningful chunk of homes in our service area that are not yet connected to sewer are Palm Beach Country Estates and Jupiter Farms. And so Palm Beach Country Estates, right, relatively large lots, right, acre and a quarter plus, and Jupiter Farms, our service area only, our legislatively defined service area only goes to Jupiter Farms Road. So relative to all of Jupiter Farms, that's actually a pretty small portion. So one could argue that we don't have the legislative authority to go build sewers west of Jupiter Farms Road. We could from Jupiter Farms Road back to the east, basically to the C-18 Canal. We have built sewers, and we do serve actively Jupiter Country Club and Sonoma Isles. So that just gives you an idea of who's not connected to sewer. And relatively, it is the rural segments of our watershed, Jupiter Farms, Palm Beach Country Estates. To the extent that they were like, hey, we want sewers, we obviously have the technical capacity, and actually we have the scope of capacity within our wastewater treatment system to serve them. It would take significant investment in pipes going to large transmission pipes to their communities, wastewater pumping stations, etc. So it would be, a serious job. I think we estimated this maybe 10 years ago at about $90 million of building sewers to serve all of them, all of those areas. So that was one of the questions. I was just mindful of your time. You guys all can listen. I'm happy to talk. So that's neighborhood sewering. I would say urban portion of our watershed and accessible, right, i.e. on public roads, basically all of them are sewer and have sewer available. There are a very small number of individuals whose sewer is available and they have not physically connected to sewer. After a year, state law requires them to connect sewer within a year. After a year, we begin billing them for sewer service, so then the only reason for them not to connect is just pure spite. And generally that's not a good fight to get in if someone's fighting from a strong spite position. So we wait them out, and homes turn over with a pretty high rate in our community. And generally when someone buys a home and they're like, what do you mean sewer's available? I can connect. And we're like, yeah, the fees have been paid. And you're already paying a quarterly bill. Please let us help you. So that process is there, and I think works very well. And I go and speak to areas, Martin County, down south, who are grappling with this. I was just on an episode, a deal with Lake Clark Shores. They are struggling with neighborhood sewering. So I will often go and advise some of these different groups of what we've done and how we've worked through that. And it's like anything, it's a big, hard problem. And you just come up with a plan, you base it on the best data, engineering, science that you have, and you execute it. So we're pretty proud of what we've done with the neighborhood sewering. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I thought, and I might be off here, but Palm Beach Country Estates, I thought had some, but like some of those houses are already hooked up.
So they have potable water service.
Okay.
So Town of Jupiter provides water to them.
Okay.
And there may literally be one or two houses on the north side of Donald Ross Road.
Okay.
So we don't have, sorry, it's poor microphone. We don't have any transmission pipes and pump stations to serve Palm Beach Country Estates.
Okay.
And so there have been a couple, and I actually don't think they're homes, they might be small businesses that were trying to go in right on Donald Ross,
Sure.
like a daycare or something like that. And we worked with Seacoast to allow Seacoast to serve them, because Seacoast already serves Southeast Point, south side of the road. And so there are areas of Seacoast that they didn't have any assets near to serve and that we serve them. We have a mutual agreement that at the point that our assets are there, they would convert our customers and vice versa for Seacoast.
Okay.
But in general,
Thank you.
with the exception of maybe two properties in Palm Beach Country Estates, they have potable water from town of Jupiter, but not sewer.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm like really confident.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's that, so we see a computer screen, so things are coming. Another thing that was asked, and I'll just like, again, not waste all of our time sitting around. There were questions about what are we doing for resiliency and like greenhouse gas and that kind of stuff. So we've been systematically working on evaluating options. And so our governing board is, I would say, truly minded to do the right things for the right reasons, but obviously cost is a practical implication. And so we've actually, since I've been the director at the district for, I don't know, I think I'm in my 16th year. And so in that time period, we've done 2 different attempts at an evaluation of the cost effectiveness of solar. We have about 80 acres of lakes on our property that we store reclaimed water in. I've always thought, man, it'd be a no-brainer to like float solar out on all those lakes, because it's not like, we're running, bass competitions or water skiing on those lakes. And so wouldn't it be great if we could float solar out there and generate energy? We obviously use about $1 million a year of energy and wastewater treatment process. It is an expensive, or it's an energy intensive utility to operate, as RO membranes are, you guys know. And so every time that we approach that, the cost benefit, the return on investment just is not there. And like I said, we've done that. We re-upped that study maybe 2 years ago. That's a Hazen Sawyer executed study. So we've looked at that. We're in the midst of executing a resiliency study where we're going to have Carollo. I think you guys may interact with Carollo engineers in the village to a degree. Having them working on a kind of a comprehensive resiliency study. When my slides are up, you'll see some acronyms that they're using. And then one of the things that I'm really most proud of from like a greenhouse gas emissions and environmental sustainability, and it's not anything that I did the science, but I didn't do like the strategic thinking. So back in the day, our longtime executive director, Rick Dent, was there. He was a limnologist. Most people didn't know that. They assumed he was an engineer. A limnologist studies lakes, there you go. So Rick, as a director, his technical background was studying lakes and the ecology of lakes. And whenever we designed the reclaimed water, I was around, but when they designed the reclaimed water storage lakes on our property, he as a limnologist went in and really leaned into the engineering design of those. And they have this huge perimeter relative to surface area. They're not square lakes, they're like weird cockamamie shapes. And he wrote a paper in 1975, I guess, convincing the board and engineers that this is what needed to be done, and he predicted the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that would be removed from the water if they in fact went with this design of lakes. And, after I arrived, again, about 18 years ago, I've been director, now I'm in my 16th year. So I came in as a scientist, and Rick was like, man, I've got all this data, I know it says some stuff, I think I know what it says, but I need you to start working on, like, let's publish some of this and, like, really confirm, do we know what we know? And I'm gonna jump forward a little bit out of order here. So this paper on the right, I gave Jay a link to this, it's free, you can download it. It is, I saw published, I don't know, like 60 peer-reviewed journal articles, right? This is what scientists do, it's a currency of science. This honestly is my favorite paper that I've ever been part of. And the science that we did here is really remarkable. We've won awards with this paper from the Water Reuse Foundation and others. The journal that is published in Science and Total Environment is like a 96th percentile ranking journal, so it's a very high ranking journal. The short of this paper says, okay, we have a standard wastewater treatment line, and wastewater treatment lines can be of different design. You can have a secondary treatment, you can do advanced wastewater treatment, you can run wastewater through membranes like RO membranes. You can treat water however you want to treat it. I've actually worked with some of the guys that designed the water recycling system on the International Space Station. Obviously, they are cooler than me. And so they literally, every molecule of water on the International Space Station gets recycled. Out of the air, out of rat urine, they don't care where it came from. Water is so heavy and so expensive to get there, they recycle it all. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. Can you imagine doing that on planet Earth and be like, bro, I got some water for you to drink? Everyone would be like, no way, Jose. But on the space station, it's a bunch of astronauts who are like pretty down with engineering and science, and they're like, we trusted engineering and science to get us here, we're fine, give me something to drink. And so, in any event, so right there are a lot of cool people doing water recycling, literally outside of the earth that we live on as well as inside. You can treat water to whatever level you want, it's just how much money do you want to spend to treat it, and generally money will often scale with complexity of design and with the energy required to treat it, right? Because energy costs money. Our wastewater treatment system is a relatively standard secondary treatment with oxidase and biosolids. We come out of that treatment system, obviously we treat water to meet EPA and DEP standards that are acceptable for recycling water for landscape irrigation. All of the golf courses in our area are irrigated with our reclaimed water. Jupiter Hills, Jupiter Country Club, literally all of them. Trump National even. I was always scared he was going to tweet if we messed up reclaimed water when he was president. It never happened. So we treat the water in a standard wastewater treatment plant, then we store it in lakes on our property, and then any customer that uses reclaimed water, they have to have a lake on their property, and it has to have a dead minimum of 3 days of storage. Because guess what? Things humans make, including pumps and pipes, break. And so I don't want someone's entire golf course dying if I can't deliver them irrigation water on one day. Most customers, actually the median is our customers have 10 days of storage on site because they've got to place the lake to get it to. The lake sits, it gets treated, it sits in our lakes, roughly 35 to 50 days. Then it gets piped to a customer, it sits in their lake, median of 10 days. And then it gets pumped out of their lake through the irrigation system and comes out sprinkler heads. All of Abacoa, every inch of Abacoa, including Roger Dean Stadium, is irrigated with our water or reclaimed water, as well as all the golf courses in our community. This paper showed when you look at the nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus are the two main nutrients. People worry about eutrophication and algae blooms. When you look at nutrients at the end of our standard concrete wastewater treatment plant, which is called gray infrastructure because concrete's gray, we have really high nutrient concentrations on the order of 3 milligrams per liter phosphorus and the order of about, well, I'll say 20 milligrams per liter of nitrogen. Now that's way down from what it was in raw wastewater, but it's still really high. We would never want to take that water and dump it into a local river, lake, or something. A natural system. Of course, our man-made systems are different, right? We go from there, by the time we walk in Abacoa and we set up funnels, and we did this because we're scientists, you set up funnels and you catch the sprinkler water it's our water that gets caught in funnels in the milk crate and goes in a bottle and put the lid on, you go back to the lab and you analyze it. Thousands of samples over 11 years. The water that's coming out of sprinklers in Abacoa and analogous to the golf courses, the quality of that water is almost precisely equal to the quality of advanced wastewater treatment, which is, so again, I said we have a basic secondary treatment. So to go from secondary treatment to advanced treatment is a remarkable increase in cost of operation and greenhouse gas emissions, because you're literally pouring in like a labile carbon source like methanol or think of sugar, right? So you're adding all this labile carbon so the microbes have tons of food and they invest all this energy eating the food and they assimilate the additional nutrients. So you can go standard treatment, which we have, or you can go in advanced treatment, way more money for your customers to pay operating costs and way more greenhouse gas emissions because of the process associated. Oh, look, wait, what if we go basic treatment? We run it through all these natural lakes or a distribution pipeline, and the design of that system, when we come out of our sprinkler heads, we're roughly equivalent to advanced wastewater treatment. So that's what that paper says. It's chock full of like real data. We had great, the last guy on the author list, Gomes, is a like crazy data scientist who, we were getting, people were harassing us because our statistics, so he went through it, like, I don't even understand the statistics, it doesn't matter, they're right. Really good paper and really compelling. The coolest thing that I think that we have demonstrated that we've done is that the overall design and operation of our system is maximized to decrease cost to customers. And how I know that, if I go look at what's our wastewater rates relative to Martin County and Seacoast and other utilities, roughly we're half price. Like literally call yourself, call whatever is your favorite wastewater utility and be like, hey, what's the average monthly cost for wastewater treatment in your service area for a 2 or 3 toilet home? Because that's right average in our area. We charge quarterly, and I think quarterly and average 2 or 3 toilet home, the quarterly rate's about $80, right? You will find it is not uncommon for people to pay $60 to $80 a month for wastewater treatment. So we're very proud that the overall architecture of our system is premised on a really clever system that we get paid by wastewater customers to take their water, we treat it to high levels using gray concrete and green natural system ecosystems, right? And then we deliver that to golf courses. Now the golf courses are paying, so we get paid on the front end to take the dirty water, we get paid on the back end to deliver the recycled water, and those two ratepayers are actually offsetting each other's costs. It's not like we're like a crazy profit center spending money on nonsense, right? We're like a utility, pretty enterprise, single focus. So this is the slide, right? We did this solar evaluation by Hazen. I have wanted badly to do solar, it's just the cost justification isn't there. I'll circle back to solar on the end. Greenhouse gas emission study, we've done that. I'll show you a slide of some stuff you may be interested in that or not. And again, with showing and really demonstrating in the literature, I love this paper because it shows what a intelligent approach, strategic approach we've taken literally since the 70s on the work that we're doing. I'm just going to jump back and make sure I didn't miss anything. So this is a table showing who doesn't have sewers, and basically very top, Jupiter Farms, Palm Beach Country Estates. Indian Hills, we're in the midst of building sewers to serve them. It's only like 20 homes. And then some of the middle ones are private roads, and it's like a single lot on private road. So very low. We're doing a utility vulnerability assessment. It's obviously AWWA, American Water Works Association, and then America's Water Infrastructure Act. Curious, none of that technically applies to wastewater. The second bullet, compliance with that is not required for wastewater. It is required for drinking water. It's like Marjorie's out, like being compliant with this. It doesn't apply because drinking water is going to everyone's homes and people are consuming it. So if someone tampers with that and doses, you know, a bad chemical in that, obviously it's going to people to consume, whereas wastewater, pretty nasty stuff, getting treated and used for landscape irrigation, or if we have excess water, it goes down to deep injection wells. So it's just not the same level of threat susceptibility and anxiety of someone messing with a wastewater system as opposed to drinking water. Nonetheless, we like to do things not just because they're mandated, but if we think something's smart, we like to go and pursue it, and we're in the midst of doing that. Talked about this. Here's a greenhouse gas slide, and so just scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, whenever you think about what we're doing and the energy, right, that we're burning and the greenhouse gas emissions that we're having, the very bottom line there is a curious one. And to explain this to you, right, so you realize the wastewater that we treat, right, it obviously should have urine, feces, and toilet paper, plus nothing else. Well, sadly, not everyone's got that memo, so a lot of people throw trash, Q-tips, dental floss, all kinds of other nonsense down the toilet. Any presentation I ever do, I always tell people, you will not be an exception, your toilet is not a trash can. Have a trash can near the toilet and use that for trash. Whatever random trash you have in your hand when you're in the toilet, don't throw it in the toilet. I realize it's a large receptacle that you can throw nearly anything into. And some of them advertise on how many golf balls they flush. That doesn't help me. Like, throw it in the trash, right? I can take you, the most disgusting part of what we do is the very beginning of wastewater treatment, where we literally capture trash and put it in a dumpster and let, again, what should be in wastewater, urine, feces, and toilet paper, let that go through to be treated. So I always beg people, for the sake of humanity, and the people that work for me, throw trash in a trash can. If y'all would relate that at the dinner table tonight, I would appreciate that. And guarantee when you say it at the dinner table with some authority, like, hey, we heard this presentation, what are they gonna be like? That's gross, don't talk, you're like, hey, listen, it's reality, right? We're eating, we're gonna be egesting, and so what are we gonna do? Anyways. So wastewater comes in, again, it's feces, it's urine, it's toilet paper. So that comes in, it's an organic biological load, right? So think about that literally, it's a food mass for something that's interested in that kind of food, right? Imagine if you ran a hog farm. A wastewater plant is an excellent, and a hog farm is an excellent analogy for a wastewater plant. So what happens? You go like to your local grocery store, you get your hogs over here, you go to Publix, back door, you get all their old vegetables, all their old food that's past expiration, and you take it, you deliver it to the hogs. And it's not food that we want to eat, but the hogs are like, party on, let's go. So they eat it. So when hogs eat, right, what do? They eat, they grow in mass, they have babies, and they have waste, right? So in a wastewater treatment plant, and ours specifically, instead of having hogs, we have just normally occurring microorganisms. The great thing about them is their mean generation time is minutes. So they reproduce beyond imagination, like so fast. So the food waste comes in, and the microbes, our goal is to make microbes happy. We're like, you want us to sing you today? We don't care, we'll sing. You want more oxygen? You want different, right? We're gonna do it. How can we make you happy? And those microbes just are like blissfully unaware. They're doing their thing. So the microbes in the heterotrophic respiration of organic matter that comes in, they are releasing CO2 into the atmosphere because it's part of, just like us breathing in and breathing out, they do analogous. They don't have lungs, but analogous cellular respiration. They're creating more biomass, they're growing their individual cells bigger, and then they're dividing and making more copies of themselves. So the gas emissions coming out of the aeration basin is literally the microbes breathing in the decomposition of the organic matter that comes in. So that is the biggest bar on there, and other than setting up a CO2 scrubber on top of that, there's no way to diminish that because it's literally the load of organic matter coming in that is going through heterotrophic respiration to be converted into biomass, microbial biomass, and ultimately gets recycled as fertilizer. So when you're thinking about what can we do to like, how can we squish this, the only way we go capture the aeration basin gas emissions is we literally load scrubbers and we like capture the CO2 and convert it to something else or like inject it into the ground. There's no easy, affordable option there. So then the other stuff, right, the next big one that we've highlighted is plant electricity. Obviously, we want to be smart. So where we can look and find more efficient pumps, where we can look to just simply optimize the operation of existing pumps, right? Those are things that we're doing continuously, and we're getting better and better. Blowers are expensive to operate. We're updating 2007 equipment to 2024 equipment, looking for marginal increases in efficiency, and as well optimizing the operation of these things. And we're spending real money, in the order of millions of dollars of upgrading this equipment and then optimizing the operation of the system. And then, if you don't know this, so on the very top, we have the Solid Waste Authority Biosolids Pelletization Facility, natural gas. So our biosolids, all those microbes that we're growing like gangbusters, we're good at growing those things. So about 70% of them get recycled inside the wastewater plant. We're just moving them, you know, they're going through the process and we're like looping them back to the beginning. They're just recycling in there. They're the brood stock of the hogs. And about 30% in an average day are getting diverted off into semi-trailers. We then, and it looks like a really wet cow patty, just to give you a mental image there. Or like a really thick Chick-fil-A cookies and cream milkshake, like either one right there. So we load that in a trailer, a semi-trailer. We drive it down to Solid Waste Authority. There's a biosolids facility. Everyone from like Boca up to us, we're all a bunch of, I think, 7 wastewater utilities are partners. We all own a little piece of it. And we take those biosolids, we take the natural gas off the landfill, and we burn that to basically convert the biosolids into pelletized fertilizer, which is like Milorganite, and gets sold either wholesale to fertilizer blenders or various scenarios. It's also energy dense, and I've been arguing that we need to leave the fertilizer business and sell it to the waste energy plant and use it for the energy density in the pellets, but that's a whole different issue. Anyways, that's kind of big picture gas emissions. I think the 3 things are really worth thinking about on that. And of course, you can go pick the smallest line you want, but moving the little lines isn't where the money is. Water quality. So these are my slides. If they seem random, it's Jay's fault. If they seem amazing, it's also probably Jay's fault. So Jay said, hey, we want to talk about water quality in the Loxahatchee. I would tell you the cocktail level high point of water quality discussion around the Loxahatchee River is there's just freaking not enough water in the dry season. It's raining like crazy, it's all the water, no one needs any more water today, right? You don't need to water your lawns. Tequesta drinking water is losing revenue because everyone turned off their irrigation system, right? Because it's just raining. When it rains, it's not uncommon for us to get over 70 inches of rain. That's crazy. Even that much rain in the dry season, invariably, February, March, April, May, it is really dry and the river doesn't get enough flow. So there are 2 elements. A state law establishes the minimum flow and level for the Loxahatchee River. And there are 2 elements in the MFL quantification. One is how much flow goes over Lane Park Dam. And it's the minimum number is 35 cubic feet per second. And if you fall below that for continuous 20 days, then you violated the MFL. That's one number. That number actually can be gained because water management, who controls the regional water movement, they can hold water in C18 at the G92 structure, and then on the 19th day, they can open it and deliver 36 CFS and restarts the clock. That one kind of, I struggle with that one because it can be gained so easily, but I appreciate Water Management District. While in the past they've gained it, lately they have not been gaming that at all, and I'm grateful. The other element really cannot be gained is that salinity down at Kitchen Creek. So if you're at Jonathan Dickinson State Park, like the swimming beach, or you jump on one of the concession boats, and they take you upstream, about a half mile from the concession area in Jonathan Dickinson upstream, you'll see there's a tributary going to the north, that's Kitchen Creek, and there's a USGS gauging station there. So that is one of the areas where we measure salinity in the water, and as you keep going, that's like River Mile 8. As you keep going another mile upshore, upstream, about a mile before you get to Trappers, you're now at River Mile 9.1. These are like technical established in state statute. There's a gauging station there. The second one going upstream from JD. So that River Mile 9.1, it's measuring salinity, it's measuring salinity near the surface of water and down at the bottom. And the MFL says, if salinity there, the average of the 2 exceeds 2 parts per thousand for a 20-day rolling average, then you've had an MFL violation. And that one is remarkable. It's very hard to gain that, because that 20-day rolling average that catches up, you can do one day of 36 CFS, and it doesn't really bend that curve. So to me, the salinity is one that's always curious. And you're like, dude, where did they take 2 parts per thousand? And like, does this even make sense? A lot of science went into the MFL, a ton. And the curious one to know is the cypress trees, which are like a hallmark habitat structure in the upstream portion of the river. Juvenile cypress trees demonstrated really good research. If they experience 2 parts per thousand salinity as a juvenile, so a seedling, kills them. Well, you can't have a mature forest if every time you get a seedling growing, they get killed, you know, in the first, second, or third year of life. And so the MFL and the violation, the consistent violation annually, literally almost every year, right, since we've been around. C18 was dug in 1958. They've started trying to improve flows to the Northwest Fork in the 70s, and we've done lots of things. This was a canoe kayak trip of the Loxahatchee River Management Coordinating Council 2 years ago. I think Marjorie was on this trip. And it really was much more of a, can you wade the Loxahatchee River from Riverbend to Trapper Nelson's than can you paddle? Because it was so ridiculously, there was just no water in the river. The MFL was flagrantly violated at this point. There's always things that you can do anywhere and everywhere if you go looking. But again, back to like Pareto principle, right? How do we focus our efforts on the biggest problems and maximize the return on investment? Delivering adequate base loads to the river, I believe, is the #1 water quality. It's a water quantity issue, but it's the #1 issue that the river struggles with. It generates like legitimate harm to the river. We have a website with a crazy amount of data on it. We're very strong on, like, if we have data, we want it out there, right? We do wastewater surveillance for COVID and other things. It's right on our homepage, click wastewater surveillance. That data, as soon as it comes in, we don't even vet it, it goes right out. We believe that having data available for people to make informed decisions is valuable. The water quality data that we have is, again, if you go to Loxahatchee River Environmental Control District, lrecd.org, if you go there, you click protecting the river, and then you click water quality. There are pages and pages and pages of analytics like this. And some of them are very simplistic. This is the green, yellow, red highlighting, like how we judge this as like good, healthy, or bad. And then some of them are raw numbers, and you can parse the data so many different ways. I will tell you, on the chlorophyll, we believe at like a kind of a technical level, the threshold that DEP and EPA set for chlorophyll in the Loxahatchee River is really seriously overly conservative. And it has to do with the data that was available at the time when they were setting the thresholds. So we didn't set the categories here on what's good, bad, or good, fair, or poor. We actually were using DEP and EPA values to color code those. Whenever DEP and EPA were setting these thresholds, and we have technical correspondence back and forth with their technical scientists, that they will gladly concede the chlorophyll levels that they have established targets for the Loxahatchee River are just crazy low. So like, for example, 7 milligrams per liter, that just doesn't mean anything to you, right? So if you walk up and see like an amazingly beautiful body of water, you're like, man, the water is so clear, it's like amazing. Easily you could have 7 milligrams per liter of chlorophyll. It's just not visually observable. When you get up into the 20s, and then like an algae bloom, you're up in the hundreds of thousands. So because people will look at this and be like, good Lord, the sky's falling, look at chlorophyll, it's all red and yellow. That one metric is really heavily biased because the target the DEP, EPA set is just excessively and unrealistically low. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt, but just some clarification. So you said February to May is the dry season, right? But if
So February to May is the driest of the dry season.
Okay.
So the dry season actually begins technically in like October, November, depending on the year,
Okay.
I think.
And I'm looking, I mean, my eye goes right to the bacteria, which it
Right.
all looks great. That's just confusing, that if that's the dry season, but bacteria is fine in there?
So that's a great question. It is very common to see the worst bacteria values in the water after a rainfall.
Oh,
So without a doubt, and actually, so Du Bois comes up a lot, like, oh, there's a warning, like, don't go
Right.
swimming in Du Bois. We've actually done a ton of work on the water quality in Du, because again, I got like, on my desk is a picture of me with like Jacques Cousteau mask learning to swim in Du Bois. Du Bois is important to my family. So we have more data than anyone on Du Bois and the whole Loxahatchee River water quality perspective. And we're like, can we build a better model? Because bacteria results never are instantaneous. You have to literally go back and culture the bacteria. So it's days, right? So when the health department says, oh, don't go swimming in bacteria, on Du Bois because of bacteria, what they really mean is like 2.5 days ago, you probably shouldn't have been swimming in Du Bois. But I'll tell you, like literally our really strong data analysis, if it has rained more than 1/2 of an inch in the last 3 days, don't go swimming in Du Bois on outgoing tide. Go at incoming tide, go at high tide. If it hasn't rained in 3 days, go anytime you want. So it is when the rain falls on the ground and runs across the land. So these bacteria that we look for and we monitor, they occur naturally in mucky soils. They occur literally in, you know, when we get all the sargassum washes up on the beach and the sargassum is like half buried in the sediment, that sargassum decomposing is loaded with what are generally described as fecal coliform bacteria. It's a large group of species that occur in muck, in mud, in decomposing sargassum on the beach, in lawn. We've had one of our staff members who lives in Tequesta has his son cut his yard, and we took just grass, and he doesn't have a dog, took grass clippings, threw them in a bucket, let them like ferment for a couple days, and we find high bacteria. So the rain falling on the land, running across the landscape to a storm drain out into the river is driving bacteria. And that's why generally wet season, we will see the worst bacteria values, and the dry season we'll see the best. That's a good question.
Thank you.
I was gonna also ask you, being data-driven, being from here and in your position for so long, how does some of this compare to 2010, 2000, 19, you know,
Right.
are we doing better, are we doing worse?
So that's like literally, you know, the gold star question. And the way that you do that, I'll just use myself for example, right? So I just ran a 5K the other day because I've never been fit in my whole life. I just am active. I love fishing and free diving. But my dad had a stroke and my brother had a stroke, and I was like, dude, I gotta go to the gym. Like, I'm gonna die. Who wants to have a stroke, right? So I invested all this effort. So then I ran a 5K, and I was like, I'm super happy with that time. The challenge with humans, you have all these variables coming in, right? Extraneous things you control, things you don't control, PFAS. How much PFAS are you ingesting that you're just not even aware of, right? How much radiation did you get? You can kind of control that. You have all these variables coming in. The watershed, we've been working, and I say we, Loxahatchee River District, but a lot of others, Palm Beach County, Water Management, Tequesta, we've been working to improve the systems that protect our waters, right? Stormwater system you guys are investing in, we're investing in wastewater, county's investing in natural lands. All the while we've been like going to the gym, like diligent, every agency's showing up at the gym, doing real work. All the while the density of people in our service area is going like this. And so you have those confounding factors. I mean, I grew up on Loxahatchee River Road. We would ride our bikes over to the vicinity of Eagles Nest Dock, free reign, anyone's backyard, seawalls, fishing, like, and you know what? One lot where we used to like go fishing all the time, one lot now has like 6 bigger homes than I can conceive of. And so when you look at the increase in density of our area of people, pets, like all of the things, it makes you really step back and go, is looking at the transition of water quality from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to today, how is that driven by the increase in density versus how has it been offset by the real work that people have been done? And I would say in many, there's so many variables you can go look at, but in many instances, we actually find relative stasis. So generally you have massively increasing density and you're maintaining relatively stable water quality conditions. So obviously without the investment that we're putting in stormwater systems and wastewater, that water quality would have just been in the tank. But that, I struggle with that because invariably, like, people are like, well, how is it getting better? And I'm like, you kind of don't understand, right? There's so much density going on. A question that Jay asked was regarding Lake Okeechobee discharges. I don't know, does this have a laser pointer?
Yes.
Maybe. Yep, it does. All right, so I'm like up here rambling on. If you guys get like over this, be like, dude, just stop. I'm fine for you to say that. I respect that. Depending on your like comprehensive knowledge of the watershed, I've worked for water management. I sat on the water management advisory, water resources advisory committee. I have a pretty broad, sound knowledge of the regional water system that serves our area. So the general comment, you guys, if you know, if you're from the area and you know fishing, Kerry Chin's like a big name, right? He's like a cool guy. So about 2 years ago, Kerry Chin posted something on Facebook, it's like, oh, Lake Okeechobee discharges are screwing the Loxahatchee, it's so brown right now. And I was like, I called him, I was like, Kerry, tell me you know more than this, man. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, bro, you tell me how Lake Okeechobee water gets into Loxahatchee and I'll come buy you lunch. And he's like, well, my buddy said, and I was like, yeah, your buddies are clowns. They actually don't know. So here's Lake Okeechobee. Oh man, I don't know if y'all can see the pointer.
It doesn't work on the TVs.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So Lake Okeechobee's on the left side of the TV, right? You get it.
Yeah.
Then the honkin' kind of geometrically straight line going to the top center of the TV is the St. Lucie Canal, C44, up very high. There you go. The big reservoir above that is the FPL cooling reservoir for their power plant out there. Anyway, so that canal going to the St. Lucie River, right? That's a C44 St. Lucie Canal. It's going to the St. Lucie River. Lake Okeechobee discharges like crazy going there, blowing out St. Lucie estuary, without a doubt. Then you have the big giant undeveloped areas in this, north of all the ag fields, are first Dupuis, which is closer to the lake, and then J.W. Corbett. And those are like spectacular. If you like hunting, they're great. And if you don't like hunting, there's amazing ocean to lake trail hiking in there that's really phenomenal. So adjacent to those is a big canal that's bringing water to the east, the L8 Canal. And that L8 Canal, yep, exactly. That L8 Canal will come down. Then the construction right there, kind of near where J, right above J near the bottom, yeah, that's the C51 reservoir. That reservoir was originally bought by water management to deliver base loads to the Loxahatchee River in dry periods, so we would stop violating the MFL. There had been a long, long lawsuit between Everglades and different people with Water Management District. They stole that reservoir from the Loxahatchee River. I say this well humored. They stole it from us and gave it to the Everglades to settle a massive lawsuit that originated when Lawton Childs was governor. It is what it is. Everglades is bigger than Loxahatchee. I realize we lost that. But that water comes down to L8 and it ultimately will make it into a series of canals that go east and discharge into Lake Worth Lagoon near Peanut Island. And so if you're ever at Peanut Island when it's raining a lot and it's outgoing tide, water like straight up will go around. That's because you can get some, not crazy, most of that water is local basin runoff, but you can get some water coming down the L8 making it to Lake Worth Lagoon. If you're in St. Lucie, whole estuary will go fresh. Lake Okeechobee. The only way for Lake Okeechobee water to get to the Loxahatchee River, and there are two ways, and this is like, I could take you in engineering and be like, this is a ditch and this is a canal that water flows through. One is, if you follow that C44 canal in the north of the screen, before you get to the last angle where it turns north, in that vicinity there is a very small farm ag ditch, and I mean small, like small, 10 feet wide or less, that will come down to the south and will bring water. It's so curious I don't have a pointer. There's agriculture, yeah.
That right there?
Exactly. It'll come down, and can you put your finger on Pratt Whitney Road? It's east-west, kind of go, Indian Town's going out, okay, so there you go, that's the line, perfect. That's the intersection of Indian Town Road and Pratt Whitney. If you turn north on Pratt Whitney Road and go up, there's some ag there, right? There's some row crop agriculture, basically off Bridge Road and just south of Bridge Road on Pratt Whitney Road. That little canal coming off C-44, and again, it's like a ditch, not a canal, can technically, and it does, deliver Lake Okeechobee water to those ag fields for irrigation. That water, if they overpump water, and again, it's not gravity driven, it's pumped. If they overpump water, that water will literally snake through and around agriculture fields and can get to the Loxahatchee River just downstream of Trapper Nelson's in the vicinity of Cypress Creek. So technically, Lake Okeechobee water can get to the Loxahatchee River there. Also, Lake Okeechobee water can flow through Grassy Waters into the C-18. Grassy Waters, that's managed by City of West Palm Beach, it blows their mind when that happens, and so they don't ever let that happen. So technically, you can move a molecule of water from the lake to the Loxahatchee River, but practically, it does not happen. It would be, in the order of magnitude, it would be less than like 1/1,000,000% of fresh water that flows to the river originates from Lake Okeechobee. So we're not worried about Lake Okeechobee impacts on the Loxahatchee in a general sense.
Are you worried about the agricultural runoff of fertilizers?
So that's a great question. Honestly, the evidence that I have seen, much more than fertilizers and pesticides and like the whole shooting match, is the turbidity. And we've actually worked diligently with Martin County, because this is all Martin County area,
Right.
to really document what we have seen. And if you're ever canoeing the river, if you don't ever, as an environmental committee, I would beg you to canoe, kayak the river. It's just, right, you got to. And so, right, the cool part is from Riverbend to basically just past, or to Trappers. I'll say Riverbend to Trappers, like, oh my goodness, Cypress can't be epic. But then as you leave Trappers, immediately on your left, there's a creek comes in, the Cypress Creek. If you do this, stop at Cypress Creek and look. And more than likely, the turbidity coming in on Cypress Creek is notably higher than what's in the natural part of the river. And so the turbidity is the one that we have seen persistent, and we believe that it's associated with the ag in this area that we're talking about. And I know that Martin County has put some real effort into, we don't have actual policing authorities of this. We're trying to capture the data to be like, hey, this is what we think matters and needs addressing, and then we're handing that to whoever we think has the authority to
Stop
call
it.
people to account.
Where, Mr. Arrington, where is the water that they're proposing to add to the Loxahatchee Slough to get to the river? Where
Okay,
is that
so-
coming from?
So there's two elements, right? Because basically, I said our biggest water issue is not water quality, it's water quantity. How do we get dry season? So how do we get base flows to the river? Number one, Palm Beach County, Martin County, Palm Beach County, and Water Management District are doing very nice work to restore wetlands. So you have wetlands that were drained historically, right? And if a wetland's drained, it's not doing what it does, is hold water and perk into the ground. That groundwater flows as base flow to the river. That's like where base flow in the river comes from, is groundwater. So by Palm Beach County, Hungryland Slough, right, Corbett, really cool work, Loxahatchee Slough, all these areas, they've been going in, they've been fixing culverts that had eroded away and were just free flowing all that groundwater out. So they're doing real work to save water. But every report that I think really kind of is worth its salt, that's been written since the 70s, has said we need water outside the basin to meet this dry season base flow issue in the watershed because of the amount of development that's going on, right? So then where do you get that supplemental flow? The supplemental flow, originally it was going to be in the rock pits down on the bottom of the map, but again, Everglades hijacked that from us. I'm kind of forever slightly jaded. But now the plan is, and this is the CERP plan, right? Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, Loxahatchee River Restoration Plan, Loxahatchee River Watershed Restoration Plan, is to basically put excess water on Mecca farms which is the undeveloped segment north of Loxahatchee, like the acreage, and immediately east of J.W. Corbett. So if you know where North County Airport is on the map, it's on Beeline Highway, just kind of out west of the North County Airport is the Mecca property. Anyone brave enough to touch Mecca on this? See, I'm good in the watershed. If this was a global map, and you're like,
This right here?
so actually just a little left, there you go, that's Mecca. So that rectangle is Mecca. The stuff on the east is Vavris. If you've flown into PBI lately, Vavris has gone developed, like crazy amount of development. Like all of that is done. It's over, it doesn't look green anymore. It is like the bluffs, so to speak. So Mecca's that rectangle right there, it touches a C-18 west leg, and the idea is to capture and store water in Mecca using ASR, alternative, or aquifer storage and recovery wells, using ASR to store extra water in the ground, pull it up, have it in the wetland, and then flow it. Where that water comes from would be the drainage water from Loxahatchee or the acreage area there. They would capture their stormwater, store it in this reservoir, store it in ASR wells, and then flow it to the river. So that, generally, that's the plan. The Loxahatchee River Watershed Restoration Project, that was one of the questions, and I'll say that, right, the water management's a local sponsor, the Army Corps is the federal sponsor. Our Loxahatchee River District's perspective is we are happy this project is moving forward. The current restoration project for the river, the CERP project, is different and is scaled back than the original plan, which is, it is what it is, right? There was this big federal effort, water management, everyone worked for years on this plan, and then all of a sudden it like went behind the curtain and everyone was like, what are we doing? And then about 3 years later, it emerged as a new plan, this plan, and it's scaled back without a doubt. It is still better than nothing. And so I'm very supportive of this. The people, you want to get someone from water management to come and give you a presentation on that. That's who the experts are. Where I relate to this is I like to keep eyes on the integrated delivery schedule, the IDS they call it. It's a key core water management document that shows all of the CERP projects, timelines, when they're anticipating engineering, when they're doing construction and completion, and the Loxahatchee project is on the IDS and is a reasonable placing relative to all the stuff. So that's kind of what I keep eyes on there. And then there's a question about potential collaborations and partnerships. I actually want to play a video, but before I do that, the one ongoing partnership we have is working with utilities, Tequesta Utilities right now on an interlocal agreement. We both are at the whims of Martin County replacing a bridge on County Line Road, the eastern bridge over the river. And so y'all have two, you have a raw water and a produced water line on that bridge. We have a reclaimed water line. So we both went to our engineer, which is the same, Kimberly Horn. We both designed what we need to do, and then we are anticipating joining hands on the actual construction. Because if we're collaborating on the construction, we can share some costs that otherwise we would both bear independently. We partnered on other utility projects. Whenever we built sewers in Jupiter Inlet Colony, we basically managed the rehab of the stormwater system, which was Jupiter Inlet Colonies. We also managed the rehab of the potable water system, which was the villages in that big project. There's always stuff to do, and the key thing, right, is figuring out when we're actually being synergistic and we're being more effective and efficient working together, and when it's it's just easier and cleaner and smarter to just go this alone. And that always comes down to what are the specific details of a specific project. I think I'm almost done. These are my questions. So we'll stop here and jump out. Jay, can you play that video? This video is not that long. If you get bored with it, we'll stop it. But I think it's a nice, clean, polished video that hopefully you'll appreciate. This was our staff put this together.
The Loxahatchee River Watershed is a big ecosystem. All that fresh water makes its way downriver through the cypress swamps and the mangroves. Estuaries are thriving places where we see lots of juvenile fish, and huge diversity in wildlife.
South Florida is really about water. It's its biggest asset. I think all of us are drawn to water. It's really important to make sure that the water bodies are clean.
That's Trevor's.
Most people think that the storm drains connect to the sewer, which is then treated as wastewater. But in our area, that isn't the case. Stormwater drains are there to protect our homes and our businesses from flooding during major storm events. But if they didn't know that our storm drains are actually connected directly to our river. Well, what that means for us is that anything that is in our storm drains goes directly into our rivers.
For the most part, what goes down the storm drain, those inlets that you see near your homes, go pretty much directly into surface waters. Stormwater's been identified as the #1 contributor to surface water pollution in the country, not just in Florida.
Some of the issues we're facing now are vegetation removal, any type of illicit discharge, anything that enters our canal system that is detrimental to the water quality.
Jones Creek is one of those places here in Jupiter that we're seeing some of these problems really manifest. And we want to prevent these types of problems from growing and extending out into other places in the Wasatch River. So in Jones Creek, there's toxins, a low dissolved oxygen level, and now we can't even go there to swim. We want to be proactive and take care of our river.
It's always easier to remove something or deal with something if you eliminate it at the source.
You know what's great about living here in South Florida? We have all kinds of water and ecotourism that goes on here.
People love to travel, and the last thing people want to see are any types of illicit discharge, any debris.
The quality of our water directly affects how successful our economy is. If we have poor water quality, well, no one's gonna wanna go kayaking or snorkeling or fishing in that water. One of the things that we can do is prevent pollutants and things like that getting into our water through storm drains and stormwater runoff. So there's some things that you can do to help out. First, I'm gonna recommend that if you have to use fertilizer, that you use a nitrogen-based fertilizer instead of one that's phosphorus-based. If you can eliminate fertilizer altogether, even better. If you have grass clippings, bag them up and put them out with the trash. And if you're using a landscaper, ask them not to blow the grass clippings into the storm drain. The grass clippings can break down and decompose, plus they're carrying all that fertilizer on them as well, which we want to prevent from going into the river. You can even change your landscaping. Using native plants reduces the amount of water that you need to irrigate your lawn, and you don't need fertilizer because they're from here and they can grow in this climate. So I would definitely recommend that as well. And if you're walking along in your neighborhood and you've got your best friend, your dog out, just make sure that you take that doggy bag home with you and put it in your garbage. Don't put it down the drain. Same with cigarette butts and other garbage. Just take that home with you and put it in your regular garbage. I've lived here in Jupiter and Tequesta for about 20 years now. And when I first moved here, I was just in love with all the natural areas that we have here and what a great community it is.
I think that the biggest solution to the problem that we have with stormwater runoff is actually public education and letting people know what they can do.
I've been in South Indian River for 28 years. I have seen many changes in my time here, but the one thing that I truly enjoyed was the people that moved out here because they know the environment.
There are lots and lots of people that are working on the problems and trying to find solutions.
Our firm has been the district engineer probably for 50 years, so we're very familiar with the system out here. The structure on Canal 5 serves in a purpose of both flood protection and water conservation, as well as a water quality function. The detention allows for the sediments that are transported in the runoff to settle out, so the water that flows over the top of the weir structure is cleaner.
Well, these control structures are very beneficial. What comes out on the other side is cleaner water that people are able to enjoy. We feel we're a big part of that in keeping the water clean.
So Dover Ditch drains water from the residential areas in the northern part of Jupiter and the southern part of Tequesta. But the ditch over time has started to deteriorate. You can see the banks have sloughed in, sand is being washed in and running down into the river and causing a lack of clarity or turbidity in the river. And the habitat that you would see under normal circumstances in a part of the estuary like this is really diminished. And we're looking to create an enhancement in partnership with the village of Tequesta and the town of Jupiter. Instead of just being a straight channel that's more bulkheaded, we'll put in a living shoreline with a meandering channel that will really create a habitat here that hasn't existed previously. Working on a project like this is participating in a community of folks. They're all working to enhance and protect the Loxahatchee River and the estuary.
Public education gets to the source, letting people know what they can do to help to curb the problem with the water quality in our receiving water bodies.
The Loxahatchee River is the first national wild and scenic river in Florida. And it was designated as a national wild and scenic river back in 1985. This happened because a lot of people in our community were very passionate about protecting and preserving the Loxahatchee River that they had grown to love. And as the river continues to make its way, it exits out through Jupiter Inlet. That's when it hooks up with our coral reef system. Those beautiful fish that you see out on our coral reefs spend part of their life in an estuary like the Loxahatchee River. And so we need to protect the freshwater sources, the saltwater sources, and really make sure that our water quality in these estuaries is the best that it can be to support the wildlife that lives there.
So that you guys had asked about partnerships, that's just something that at the staff level, we were working on stormwater education and obviously looped in the village and the work you guys do on stormwater. So that's what I had. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Wait. Question? Russ? I'm good.
Dr. Arrington, as a graduate of the University of Alabama, I'm saddened by the fact that you're no longer there. You are you're obviously very knowledgeable and enthusiastic about the subject and your source of income from your employment, and I think you'd be and were a great asset for the University of Alabama. I do have two questions. One is, you mentioned Hazen and Sawyer are doing, like an ongoing basis, like how to save energy, basically. Knowing those efforts, the result of those efforts in terms of reduction of the kilowatt hours of electricity would help us. We don't need to dive into your business, but for example, if your kilowatt hours were 1,000 in 2020 and now 2021 based upon the thingamajig that Hazen and Sawyer recommended, and now it's 900 kilowatt hours, well, that we would be able to report our share of that reduction to the people that we are working with relative to greenhouse.
The challenge for that to me is whenever, because credits, carbon trading, greenhouse gas, right, reductions, that's just something that really matters to me. And is, I think, going to be, as we look into the next 50 years, is going to be a notable area of growth in not only thinking, but there are going to be strong economic implications in that area. And so, my question is, why would any other entity want to report on the specific greenhouse gas savings that we've executed that our ratepayers have paid for? Because all of those greenhouse gas reductions and savings, as we go through and do, right, the ledger book calculations, if I count them and you count them and someone else counts them, it's a diminution of the reality and the value of those. Those should only be counted once. They should be logged on a ledger book, and then the future value of those should be accessible to the people who paid for those. And so I actually think that it's inappropriate because it leads to double counting of all the agencies that pile in and be like, hey, I saved this, what did you save? Let's all report everyone's numbers. No, just report what you guys actually drive and save, so that you have that, so that if we do get a point where carbon credit trading is going on and there's value or not, or there's legal requirements or ramifications of saving or not saving, you've got your ledger book and it is clear and concise what it is that you did, and we will maintain our own, and it'll be clear and concise what it is that we did, and that any of the benefits of those will accrue to our ratepayers like the ones you do will accrue to yours.
Well, your logic is correct, but the entity that we're working with is only allowing us to get our proportionate share of whatever you may do.
Right, but so why do you need specific data saying what another entirely independent organization has done, that when you don't have direct control over that organization and you're not paying for those efforts?
It's a good question. It's a good question, but that's just the way it's set up.
Right. So I think though, if you say, hey, wait a minute, let's monitor. Like, I don't monitor my wife's fitness because, you know, as I know, she doesn't listen to me. And also, she doesn't go to the gym. So if I'm getting up going to the gym, I'm like, I'm controlling myself and I'm monitoring those outcomes.
Yeah.
And so to monitor and police other people whom you don't control, they could be really more fit than me or less fit than me. It's like, they're doing their own thing. And I would just say that the district has in the past, we've done a lot of work on conserving water, like actual, right, all the water that we recycle. And Village Tequesta and Town of Jupiter both have materially benefited in your consumptive use permits by lodging the credits from our reuse water. I have no intent on allowing that to happen on carbon savings. So we will monitor our work. We'll do good work. We'll tell you generally what it is that we're doing, but I'm not going to give you those numbers because it doesn't make sense to me why you would report those on your ledger as if it was something that you did, because you didn't do it. You didn't pay for it. You didn't drive the decision. You were just ancillary and watched it occur.
I better understand where you're coming from now, but the program that we're operating under, it is what it is. But
right, but you can also say, hey, Village Tequesta is what we are, and this is what we're doing, and let's like focus on what we're doing, because that's what we all need to do in life.
We are doing that as well. Like, for example, Marjorie's doing an energy reduction thing at the water plant, where we're going to count that as a greenhouse gas reduction.
Exactly.
The other thing is, you know, we too are doing a vulnerability assessment, and we're not doing that. I think you said the American Water Works Institute. We're using the Florida's freebie that they're giving to everybody right now, and I don't know if you're eligible for that, but that's really not my question. My question is, our vulnerability study has shown that some of your lift stations are at risk of rising sea levels.
Right.
And I just wanted to make sure you knew that, and that, you know, if you were part of that state program, and you may not be, but they would pay 50% of whatever you have to do to make it more resilient.
Right. So, sometimes you gotta be careful and watch out for free lunches. The Everglades Restoration Project, to me, and having worked a lot of my career on that, I was literally in the meeting when it was negotiated between Water Management and Army Corps of Engineers that the Army Corps would pay 50% of the price tag to restore the Kissimmee River. I was like sitting at the table in Jacksonville. And it has been surmised by a lot of people a lot smarter than me that Florida would have been in better financial shape to have just gone and done it rather than wait for 50% of the money from the federal government, because to meet all of the criteria of the federal government to get their half, it more than doubled the cost of the project. And so my take is free lunches are many times worth exactly what you pay for them. I think the program that we're doing is a sound one. It's not to disparage the program that Florida's doing, of course. Regarding the susceptibility of lift stations to flooding, so it's curious, and certainly I work with Margie and we'll be curious to get some of the results from her. But if those are driven by, sunny day flooding, right, the sea level rise flooding or combinations, we have just our own in-house GIS tools where we have gone and looked at different sea level rise projections, elevations on lift stations. In a general sense, whenever we prioritize risk and things that we're most stressed about, and we're not done with this study, but at the staff level, the flooding on those lift stations has not been at the level of criticality where we're like, oh heavens, we have to go deal with this. And just to give you an idea, so we all know the beach here, right? Our beaches are epic. So Range Colony down kind of near the pier, it's like the little place where you have people coming in town, they have the means to stay there, like why wouldn't you stay literally hanging over the beach? There's a wastewater pumping station immediately next to that in the dune on the south side, if you've ever noticed that. That's one of our wastewater pumping stations. That is the dumbest place in the world for a wastewater pumping station, like just to be blunt, right?
Yeah.
And so I ping my engineers and they're like, listen, we all know I'm not an engineer, but I'm gonna go on a limb and tell you this is an ignorant location for a wastewater pumping station. What do you say we move that on the other side of the berm, dune, and we like deal with it over there? And they're like, that would technically, academically, yeah, we agree. Like, that is not an ideal place. But to move that lift station over here, let's just throw out a number and say it's gonna cost $800,000. And they're like, can we just remind you, when the Cat 5 hurricane is coming, that whole resort shuts down. We go over and close the valve, turn off the pump station, and it's like out of service. And so I would tell you that many of the lift stations that you may identify in a preliminary assessment of jeopardy for flooding, we very likely have thoughts on how we will manage them through a storm or through a significant flooding event, assuming the duration of that flooding event and how we might be able to manage through that. So,
All right, thank you.
but very nice.
Nothing additional, Joe.
No, good, thank you.
Jay?
Cool, I'll just apologize for talking too long.
Oh,
No,
No, that was great.
So,
Enjoyed it.
that was great.
Absolutely, thank you.
I have a question.
do it.
Everyone's like, all right, good job. So there are no stupid questions, but this might qualify. Is there an end of life to the holding ponds?
That's a totally not stupid question, that's a good question. So, in glacial scales, yes, but in relevant scales to a utility functioning, no. We do maintenance on the lakes. We will go through about once every in that paper that I showed, we actually talk about maintenance of the lakes because it matters. So about every 3 to 5 years, we will go around the lake with a long arm track hoe and remove any of the excess littoral vegetation that's kind of gone beyond where it should be. Put that in dumpsters, and then that gets recycled with vegetative waste recycling. And then we've done, it's funny, we have giant alligators in those lakes, like massive, like over 14 feet. And we have this little like 8-foot dinghy that we should a couple people in with a trolling motor. And they've got a sonar and a GPS, and so they'll run a grid and like get like a Seymour chart, right, for our lakes. So we can look at any buildup of organic matter and other areas that we need to address. So short answer is totally fair question. At the scale of the operation of a utility, those lakes and their lives with reasonable maintenance will far exceed our practical constraints.
That raised the question for me too.
No questions for you, Jay.
What are you guys doing with the Old Bush Wildlife area?
So that's a good question. I actually got asked that at the gym this morning. So my standard response is when Bush started, now 20-something years ago, they were different times, right? So it was David Hitzig and a tool belt and like hammering nails and building like a raccoon cage. And our thoughts on vulnerability and jeopardy of the wrong people coming in were really different than they are today. So today, our thought is really focused on site security, and we're doing real work on that. So how do we want to divide our entire property, it's like 160 acres, how do we want to divide that into zones that may have different levels of security safeguards? And everyone on our governing board really likes the natural cypress swamp, right, that the board walks in. I mean, we just approved like a 50-year site plan, and in that site plan, it was like staff have to safeguard this site plan or this cypress swamp unless it's like the last possible thing that could be used for utility. So board clearly is like, we love the natural habitat, the Pineland Nature Trail, the Cypress Dome. So we don't have intent on developing those, but the level of public access will be in question. Today we were doing on-site a wastewater tour. Another day we may do an on-site birding tour where those are being led by people at the River Center. So there's a process and there's a group of people going through looking, because there are cool birds, there's all kinds of stuff. But it just being kind of open, willy-nilly, so to speak, to the public, I think we may be beyond those days.
My last question, again, might be stupid. This is more of a curiosity thing. Is there a penalty when you violate the MFL?
So, also not a stupid question. I wish there was, 'cause I'd like to go and carry that bat and beat people.
Yeah.
So the MFL is defined in state statute, and that statute, to my knowledge, does not carry a penalty. It just says that a recovery plan, quote, shall expeditiously be implemented. And shall expeditiously is in quotes, be implemented, right? Just legal words around that. So the recovery, it's been violated since it was defined. The recovery plan originally was the LA drop pits, which again, everybody stole from us. Again, a little bitter. So the penalty for violating the MFL was to build a recovery plan. We built one. We invested $300 million in buying a hole in the ground to store water to deliver. That all got hijacked. So now we're on, the next phase, the revised Loxahatchee River Restoration Plan. So I think that legal people, water management would be like, no, we violate the MFL. We know we need a solution, so we're working on the restoration plan.
All right, super.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was wonderful.
Enjoyed it.
All right, also, we're going to keep the public under control.
All right. Okay, consent agenda. This is approval of the August meeting agenda minutes.
Yeah. I make a motion to approve the minutes under the consent agenda of August 14th for approval.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? All right, that passes. Which brings us to the regular agenda, old business. This is, these are things that we wanted to get to last week and didn't have the opportunity due to time constraint. And I think, are we still a 4 o'clock hard stop?
It's 4:30, but
Good.
we can push through it a little bit if
All
you
right,
guys want
all
to.
right. Good. So I was going to, with Michelle, give a review of the ribbon cutting that occurred in Jupiter Inlet's Lighthouse Outstanding Natural Area. This happened in July 17th. So Michelle and I went there, the mayor was there, vice mayor was there, the manager of the ONA, the Outstanding Nature area. I don't know if you guys looked through the memo that I sent, but it's just kind of a lot of good information. I don't know if there's necessarily any questions from that, but it's just general information on the ONA, how it was established, why it's so important. What I wanted to talk about was a request made by Peter DeWitt, who is the manager of the ONA. He had asked both Michelle and I, he might have mentioned it to the mayor as well, I don't recall that, but he's looking for basically volunteers for community service hours there. This would entail, cleaning up places, picking up litter that's left behind when people, hike through the trails and whatnot. Whether that's one person, maybe a class from a school, or, he was asking us to help facilitate getting the word out so people know that there's an opportunity there, and especially for kids. I think every high school student is required to do community service hours, if I'm not mistaken. All mine did. But, so I just wanted to throw that. That is the request by Peter. So how do we go about doing that?
Well, I would suggest that we, if Peter has, bullets or photographs or whatnot that might help this process, that would be great, but suggest that someone get in touch with Laurie McWilliams and say, ask her, would she put something like that on her Smoke Signals newsletter and/or on her Friday news, whatever they call it, alert, so that people would see that, you can get some community service hours, you can just want to be a volunteer, if you just want to be out in nature and help keep it clean, contact that number and they'll make arrangements.
Social media, they should do some blasts and
Yeah.
post on that.
Yeah, Brad, I'll loop you in with the clerk and get that started, because that's a good story to put out on social media especially.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. Any questions on the memo that I sent? It's just good information. But highly recommend, maybe when it cools off a little bit to check out that new trail. It's north of Bridge, and I think you can park maybe after hours at that bank right there in the corner. That's where I parked.
Where's the entrance?
Right there in that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, at US 1 and whatever the name of the road is, where that bank is at.
And where they're painting that bank, right, on Bridge Road and US 1?
No, so the trail goes from Bridge Road all the way up to, I don't remember the name of the road, the North Road, where that bank is at.
I think it's a TD Bank.
It's
Yeah,
TD Bank,
TD
and you're
Bank.
talking about US 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The trailhead is right at that corner.
Right there. But if you mean where you want to park your car to walk the trail,
Yeah.
would be you turn on to Beach Road,
Right.
like
Okay.
you're going to the beach.
Yep.
Just on the
And the
north side.
first driveway you see on your left
Yeah.
is a small parking lot about the size of this room
Okay.
for people that want to hike the trail.
That's cool.
But if it's after hours, you can park at the bank.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where
That's cool.
the new trail. So there was existing trails on that north side of the, you said Beach Road? That was Bridge Road, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Beach Road. This is a new trail the Eagle Scout constructed that connects with the existing. And it was nice. It was very nice. Nice little observation deck out by the water. It's beautiful.
I tried the other day, but the parking lot was full. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't, in fact, they were parking illegally, it was so full.
Yeah, it's a small little parking lot to get
Test
anything done.
spots.
All right, that's it. The next item on the agenda, under old business, if Tom could just give us an idea, and that's been
Yeah,
a few months, but.
I'll be short and sweet. I mean, I think I shared before all of that, what I submitted to them with all of you. And at that meeting, I brought up that same thing I just mentioned to Mr. Arrington about the, what do you call it, the lift stations and the vulnerability assessment and all. And they, I don't remember how they responded, if they were gonna, I think they were gonna look into it by talking to staff about it to see the extent of it. But anyway, they were just very thankful for the most part, and the only substantive thing direction-wise, which we've already taken care of, was the mayor, with the blessing of the others, wanted us to consider having nighttime events or having EAC meetings at night. And we talked about that a month or two ago, I can't remember which. And so I think what we decided on that is to just periodically come up with some sort of a program or thing that can be done at night to see if it improves attendance. I think that's what my memories tell me. But overall, they were just very thankful and told us to keep up the good work.
All right, any questions for Tom? No? Next, the Living Shoreline Code update. I know we spoke about this, gosh, I think it was in May.
Yeah, I think I presented it to you in June.
June, was it? Okay.
And then I took it to the Planning and Zoning Board a few days later. They also basically concurred with everything in there. So we got a positive recommendation, and I'm taking it to Village Council next month. So hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing pops up there and it gets adopted. But yeah, it's moving forward. If anyone wants to come, or if you want to have someone as representative say, the EAC supports this initiative, that it's always helpful.
I have a question. Sure. So I know that when we were discussing this, when it was introduced in June, if that was the month, there were a few, I don't know, not grammar, but words in there that were used. Disturbed shoreline. Did we ever come up with a definition to that?
So, good question. There really was not a way to do it. That the Planning and Zoning Board asked the same question, and I talked to our building official. We couldn't find a way to even define that. But what we did do is we did kind of heed the advice of this board, where we said that the building official and myself could let people build a hardened shoreline if they could prove that their shoreline was disturbed. We took that out now so that we don't have that staff level approval, and it has to just be a zoning variance. So now the burden of proof is there's a hardship you have to prove through zoning variance, which would be that you'd have to have an engineer prove that your shoreline is disturbed, and then you'd have to go to our Planning and Zoning Board and get a zoning variance. So that's probably the most restrictive way you could even do it.
Yes.
So
That always seemed to me like a loophole, because I always felt like you could disturb it yourself and then say you have something disturbed.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and this way I think, like I said, they'll have to basically prove it through an engineer, and we can always kind of fact check that. If we need to, we can get an independent engineer to review it if we think it doesn't look legitimate. But there may be legitimate times when it's needed. So there's a path forward to do it, but it's not as easy as it was, I think, when you guys looked at it.
All right, anyone? All right, next, tree code.
Tom, can I hijack this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think we're probably running a little short on time. I've got Steve Parker, the village landscape architect, who's ready to come to our next meeting and do a more in-depth talk about this. So if you're okay with it, you and him can kind of tag team that discussion at next month's meeting when we've got more time.
That's wise.
It's fine with me.
So I don't need to motion it? No. Okay. Oh, new business. Actually, it's old business that just we didn't get to. I'm sure everyone was well aware of what happened, over a week or two ago?
Yeah.
Last 2-3 weeks.
So I don't, that poor guy who leaked it doesn't have a job now.
His GoFundMe's doing okay.
Is it?
He's doing better off.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
2-3 times.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
he's like
so maybe it
over
was a good move.
200,000.
Yeah, I think he said he was making like 45,000 and he got like over 200 from the
Like
GoFundMe,
in
so he's,
48 hours.
Yeah, he's doing
so
good.
He's doing okay.
All right.
And so
I think the only, other than him leaking that information, the only real, it was just the outcry
Just
from,
absurd.
which, of course, it just made zero sense. So I don't know what there is to discuss. I think we threw that in right when it happened, and we were like, oh my God, this is, it's gonna be the big thing, but as far as I know, it's been squashed for now. If something pops up in the future, we'll address it
Yeah.
then.
I saw a potential pop-up yesterday. That social media site next door, which is a lot of crybabies and
Yeah.
complainers and people that don't know up from down asking questions, but this person had what appeared to be a fuzzy, what do you call it, when you take a screenshot of something, of a bill that has been filed in Florida's legislature. I couldn't tell whether it was House or Senate, where generally allowing for unsolicited proposals to be legitimized, kind of like what we just talked about. And it could be a crackpot, I don't know, but that's what it appeared to be to me, that somebody had filed a bill that would allow what happened behind the scenes to not necessarily be behind the scenes, but to be a legitimate thing to do in the future.
So my understanding is that every 10 years, they being hang on for a second while I have brain fog. The people who fund, right, our state parks, you have to explain where the money is going, what you're spending it on, right? So every 10 years, maybe, is that what you're saying, Tom? Like they have to come up with stuff. Granted, golf courses, come on,
Yeah.
seriously, but they have to allocate where this money is going. Obviously, there are way better choices than what they were discussing, and trying to sneak through, I think. But I think every 10 years was my understanding that it has to, they have to have these discussions and figure out where the money is gonna be spent.
Well, Jonathan Dickinson is a state park.
Yeah,
And
state.
so every year, their operating expenses have to be approved by
Correct.
probably FDEP, and their budget is approved by the legislature.
Yeah, correct.
So maybe they go through a 10-year planning process
I
or
think
something like
that's where
that,
it is,
maybe?
the whole
But
thing.
this thing I saw yesterday, it looked like it was the screenshot of the, one of the two chambers, Senate or House, that someone had filed a general bill for 2025.
For 2025.
Yeah, the legislative session starts January of 2025.
Wow.
we'll track that. Right now, the way the process works, there's a process called the Unit Management Plan Amendment Process, and it's like an 8-step process that the state has to go through to modify any state-owned properties. and I think they are on public involvement was step 3 of 7. So, you know, they were trying to have that one meeting in Stewart, kind of probably quickly and, you know, under the radar, but there's a whole nother level of steps that they were going to have to go through. And even a lot of the state the state reps around that represent JD didn't even know about it. So a lot of people were taken aback at how the process was going. I think it would have gotten derailed no matter what, but it just happened to get leaked and it got derailed a lot quicker than it would have eventually. And but we'll monitor that, Bill.
Yeah, we gotta watch it because didn't the governor say at the tail end of his tirade that this may come back?
I didn't hear
I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll track it.
We just have to watch it.
Yeah.
We're tracking it.
All right. If there's no more discussion on that, let's move on to number 8. Unfortunately, I wish we could have done this after the talks from the presentations, I'm sorry, from the folks who gave the presentations last month. That way it would have been fresh in our heads. But I think everyone here, Russ wasn't here. No,
I wasn't here last month.
you weren't here either. Okay. So the first one was coral reef bleaching. We had what's her name, Taylor Tucker from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection come in and give a presentation on our reef system and the damage that occurs through coral bleaching, why it occurs, and the efforts they're making to remedy the damage done to the reefs. She had asked for our help, and in my mind, unless someone else has another comment, is to just get the word out on some of the programs that they run. For instance, one of them is CFAN, which is a community-based monitoring program. Divers that go down, they take pictures, or they at least make note of areas of coral that have been damaged, including coral bleaching, not just coral bleaching, but you know, if there's damage because someone tried to anchor up. And so it's a community service sort of thing, and I think in addition to what we'd like to do for JILONA, this might just simply fall into that same category. I'm not sure if smoke signals, I've never seen it on the text that comes every Friday, anything with regard to CFAN or some of the other programs, but what I can do is reach back out to her, get the information that she feels is the most important and pertinent to have published, and we can do the same thing.
Yeah.
I've got a suggestion I think is a good idea, is to have maybe a letter or an article from the chair kind of outlining a few things that the committee is working on, and so you can kind of mention a few different things. There's another recycling initiative that I want to mention later that the council wants the EAC to help a little bit with, so could be an opportunity there.
So you mean for him to give like the chair's letter to Laurie?
Yeah, he'd have a letter in there. I mean, we could even put, you know, a photo of you and, you know, Chair Brad Freeze. And, right, because they do that with council people, right? A council person usually has an article about whatever. So it's just an opportunity you could give an update on a few different initiatives, and introduce yourself maybe as the new chair. And I could even help co-write that. Meg and I could help.
You know, in all the years I was chair, and this is still true today, Laurie is hungry for environmental stuff that she wants to put on any of her platforms for us. She's just waiting to receive stuff, basically.
Okay, that sounds great to me. So the direction then would be introduce myself, and then are we going to do one of these initiatives? Or, I mean, it's up to me, I guess, but What do you guys think?
I wouldn't overwhelm it. Maybe
Yeah,
choose,
that's what I was thinking.
Top three at max, you know?
Yep, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that works. Let's do top three, and I will write it. You want, everyone's gonna wanna see it, right?
That's okay. If-
The deadline, so the, the deadline for the next one is October 15th.
So I can send to you and then,
It could be in next month's agenda. Next month's meeting is October 9th.
yeah, but
So-
I think we circumvented the sunshine law.
Yeah. You
And
can send it to me.
that's legal, right?
Yeah, you can send it to me and then I
There you
can
go.
circulate
Okay.
a draft.
That makes it quicker, instead of waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, so that's what I'll do, all right. CERP, any comments? It was interesting that Dr. Arrington had mentioned CERP, which makes sense, but
Yeah.
any comments with regard to the presentation?
No, I thought it was, I thought it was great. I do have a question in the back of my mind is, you know, when I asked him, you know, where's the water gonna come from the slough, for the Loxahatchee slough, you know, to get to the river? It didn't seem like there was a lot of sources of water to me to get, so I don't know.
A little ditch
Yeah,
or something?
It didn't sound like a whole lot of water gonna end up in the Loxahatchee slough, but we'll see.
No.
Well, remember they're building, that one spot he showed, they're building a huge lake there
Yeah.
that will drain out as needed.
Yeah, that's true. I think the South Florida water guy mentions that same thing as
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. No, I thought it was great, what he said. And the plan, you know, it may be too complicated to explain that on smoke signals or Friday alerts, but maybe it's something that says CERP is underway and here, 3 bullets, 4 bullets says
Okay.
this is the key things that may be of importance to us here in our area.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope everyone got the email. The presenters from last month sent backup material, the presentation, as well as, in this particular case, the link to the Army Corps, the project. You know, we could probably include some of that information.
Yeah, yeah. It's, a lot of that data is overwhelming to anyone. If we can boil it down and just say, hey, this is underway and this is what might be good for our area, or bad, if it's something bad.
And if you want some light reading.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
link.
You want to entertain yourself, go to this link.
I'm not gonna skip over Jupiter Narrows, but I'm gonna skip over it for now. I'm going back to it. The Loxahatchee River Environmental Control District, that was today's presentation. I don't know,
It's great.
you know, we asked the questions. I don't know if you guys wanna discuss anything about it, but if not, we'll just move
No,
on to Jupiter Narrows.
Online.
Okay. So the Jupiter Narrows Restoration Project, Russ, are you familiar with it at all?
That's just north of the bridge there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, I looked at the minutes.
Yeah.
Just sort of skimmed along, but
I mean, I think we can all remember, there is a small little area of Tequesta right in there, despite the fact they're called
Right.
Jupiter Narrows.
with mangrove islands and stuff.
Yeah.
That was the
Mangrove
concern.
islands have deteriorated. Sue did an outstanding job presenting what they have done thus far and what the plan is moving forward to restore the mangroves in that area. She had asked just recently, I got an email, I think that was yesterday, asking for a EAC letter of recommendation for Jupiter Narrows. The Village of Tequesta Council has already provided one. Palm Beach County Palm Beach County Environmental Resource Management has provided one. and she was hoping that we could put together a letter of endorsement or a letter of support. I'm good with it.
I'm not sure if we can, is my problem.
I thought the same thing, since the Village of Tequesta Council has already provided one.
Are we different?
Well,
Aren't we a filler for information to the council? The council
Yes.
makes the ultimate
We're advisory, yeah.
yeah.
funnel, I guess, not a
Right.
filler.
I mean, could we?
I'll check with the attorney. I don't see why it would be an issue.
If he says, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine, but
So pending attorney stuff.
Yeah.
We do it.
I'll see if I can get an answer before the end of the meeting.
Okay.
But I thought, that's great, but I thought there was something else that she was asking in one of the emails I saw, and that was something along the lines of, there's a FDEP grant program that's got like I'm gonna fake it, like an October 30 deadline.
Yeah.
And she checks off most of the boxes that you have to fall under to get this grant from the FDEP. And so she's optimistic that has a good chance. She knows it's not guaranteed, but has a good chance. And I thought she said something like she needed the village council to designate themselves as the local sponsor for the grantee, meaning her and her Jupiter Narrows group. To me, it's a no-brainer because the council has already agreed to do that at some point in time. For example, the examples that we gave them at that time as to how it would be used is, one, it's just letting the bigger agencies that are in that field of environment and so forth know that the local government is happy or glad or that this kind of thing is being done. And but secondly, it's a no-cost thing to the village. You're just a sponsor in name, that you are okay with what these people do, and that you're signing your name to it, not for any financial contribution or anything. You're just the sponsor. That's all it means. So they've already agreed to do that for like Palm Beach County for when they have mangrove projects, or when they have building islands in the lagoon or whatever it may be. They're always going to ask for a local sponsor. Local sponsor doesn't do anything except maybe write a letter every now and then, or write a resolution, say we support what does. It's the same kind of thing as the way I see it. So the question is, we don't meet till whatever the date is in October for the second Wednesday. Council meets on second Thursday. Whatever those days are, she's got to turn something in by the end of October for the grant. And the question is, can we get the village, this is my take on what I read, can we get the village council's approval for the village to be a signer or the sponsor of the project for the grant purposes only? Did I read too much into her email? I don't know. Hope not.
I'm not, yeah, so if you look at the backup, I did include the CPI grant, which she had mentioned in that email, because when I spoke to her prior to that email, I mentioned it to her. I'm like, well, I was looking up grants, and this one certainly ticks all the boxes, or at least it appears it does. Who's eligible? 35 coastal counties and municipalities within their boundaries that are required to include a coastal element in their comprehensive plan. An entity, a local government, or eligible applicant. I'm not sure what eligible applicant means. May submit one application per funding cycle. Okay, so I'm not absolutely sure how this grant is structured. if it's as simple as, okay, Village of Tequesta, you know, we'll sponsor or add, you know, us as a municipality on the grant with the Jupiter Narrows Conservation Group, that would be easy. I just don't know if it would be that easy, because I haven't read into this, this grant. I will say, however, I'm driving over to the Florida Resilience Conference tonight and for the next 2 days, and I noticed that one of the talks is not this particular grant, but grants with that offer money for resilient shorelines, resiliency.
Yeah.
Maybe someone there, as I mingle, may know a little bit more about this CPI grant. I'll do some more research on it. If it's as easy as assigning our name to it, and Village Council has already said they would, then it's a no-brainer. I just don't know that.
But you see, here's the other thing. So the council meets on Thursday night of this week.
Mm-hmm.
So if that would be, pretend like you're Molly Young, the mayor, and you get a request by Jay or the EAC that says, hey, we really think the village ought to sign off as a sponsor, which means you don't pay a dime for this program, this grant program. Molly might want, if I was Molly, I might want to just say, hey, council, under any other matters, just want to make sure you're okay. We've got a request to sign off on the Narrows, with the Narrows for a grant for the mangroves. Are you okay with it? Kind of a thing. If that's the case, then it's more timely for her to do that tomorrow night than it is in October.
Mm-hmm.
Is everybody?
We can get a message to her saying that we're on board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they can do that without it being on the agenda and without there being a resolution. I think they might have to do it via resolution, but it can't hurt if you want to take a vote. I'll pass it on if there's a way to pass it on tomorrow night.
Well, here, I guess the underlying problem is Sue and or Brad ultimately going to be able to think, okay, this is a winner for her to apply for? I mean, it's kind of sketchy right now.
Mm-hmm.
If she's reading it right, or if it's 100% a slam dunk that it's valid for her to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's invalid, well, I guess it's okay to seek the approval right now, because if it's invalid, it doesn't even go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, so I just saw that other email. Calling it a signatory partner.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I would motion, well, someone maybe could motion.
So what were you looking for, Jay?
I didn't even know about this until just now, so I'm in the dark, but
I didn't know about it until about an hour before I came here.
Okay,
today, so
yeah, perfect.
I'm sorry.
You could maybe just make a motion to say that you recommend the village council evaluate whether moving forward as a signatory on that grant is worthwhile, because of course there could be, liability, right? We want to make sure there's no liability, or that we're not responsible for something that we don't want to take care of. But you could recommend that village council explore whether that's worthwhile to pursue.
Well, they've already said they would be a sponsor when needed for Jupiter Narrows projects, for them to accomplish their goal.
Sure.
To upgrade the mangrove.
In concept though, right? It wasn't like a blank check, right?
So each one would typically individually come back to them for consideration.
Sure.
Well, anybody got a calendar? When is the second Thursday of October?
It's October 10th for them and October 9th for you guys next month.
Sorry.
You're good.
I'm just worried that that's not, if I'm wrong about the due date for the grant, then it could be up the creek without a paddle.
I think we have a busy council agenda tomorrow night. It's like it's the end of the fiscal year, so it's a
Yeah.
really busy council meeting. I don't foresee them wanting to take any new action on anything at the last minute, so.
Any special meetings on the horizon? Other than, I saw one the other day.
There's
about-
probably a workshop. That's actually something that we could probably talk about at a workshop. Give me a second.
Hey, as new guy, can I ask a quick question about council meetings? Do you guys typically attend the council meetings, or is there an expectation to attend?
There's no expectation to attend. I have a bad habit of attending, but, you know, no one's required.
It is educational. I've attended a handful of them, so you just kind of see what actually goes down, but yeah, you're not
You
required.
can see them on YouTube live.
Oh, you can, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha, thank you.
So I guess maybe, tell me if this sounds right. Someone makes a motion that says words to the effect that the EAC recommends the village council give consideration to being either the sponsor or, what was that verb?
Signatory partner.
Or signatory partner for an anticipated grant, the name of which is escaping me at the moment, that the Jupiter Narrows group is contemplating applying for. So that way, if there's a workshop, you can get it on it. If it has to wait till the 11th hour for the council meeting in October,
Yep.
one way or the other, it's gonna get there.
There's a workshop on September 30th, so maybe we can get it on that.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, so based on whatever it was I just said, I make a motion to that effect.
I second it.
Aye.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
That's good.
Any ace?
I
No.
definitely want to support that.
You got it? Jay, you got it?
Got it.
Okay, perfect.
It's called the Coastal Partnership Initiative Grant. Oh, you didn't say the grant. And the backup does have additional information about it. It's in the CPI awards.
Okay.
Next. So this goes right into, where are we at here? Oh, lordy.
Oh, is that waste management? Oh, no, blue carbon. No, where are we?
Yeah.
When I go down to the backup, if there's graphics in it, it really screws up the format on this. Okay, new bit, no, oh, blue carbon, all right, now. Oh, man, I took a deep dive into mangroves and their ability to sequester and store carbon. Okay. I was so excited. I said, oh, I gotta make this an agenda item. So what kind of interested me was I saw, as I was reading through some greenhouse gas and carbon papers, is that mangroves are 4 times more efficient, 4 times better at carbon sequestration, basically turning carbon in the air and taking it out of the air, and 10 times better at carbon storage, according to the NOAA, as compared to, not jungles, but
A tree?
Any kind of tree.
rainforests.
Oh.
All right, so they're excellent at sequestration and they're excellent at storing the carbon. I'm not going to go into the deep dive on how or why, although I might, because it is interesting. So with a regular forest, a jungle, whatnot, a lot of that carbon is stored in the biomass. Okay, same thing with mangroves, but mangroves have roots that go down into a very low oxygen environment soil as compared to, I'll just say regular forests. That carbon goes very deep in that sediment as compared to a regular forest. That carbon is also transformed to bicarbonate, chemical reaction, and that bicarbonate is washed out to the ocean. Bicarbonate is good, it's a buffer. So I'm sure all of you have heard of, you know, the acidification of the ocean. Well, buffers buffer that acidification, all right? I was just blown away at how effective mangroves are for greenhouse gas and carbon sequestration and storage. In addition to its ability to add resiliency to our shorelines, if they're in the right place. In addition to it being an estuary for, you know, all sorts of fish and sea life. And then I started thinking, well, we're trying to be Tree City, USA, right? Do mangroves qualify as trees? How much money does the village, or has the village spent on becoming this Tree City, USA? Estimate.
You have to spend a certain percentage on your tree canopy per capita a year. I don't know the number. It's not a huge number, but the village manager does put a certain amount of money in the budget every year for, like, the Tequesta Drive tree planting plan. There's money in next year's budget. I want to say 15,000.
Yeah.
It's not a huge number, but if you're going in the direction of trying to do mangrove plantings, that's a great initiative to start working on for next year's budget, if that's where you want to go.
That's,
Should we work on, oh God, you and I talked about it, what was it? Should we try for the urban forestry
yes.
grant to double that number,
Mhm.
whatever it may be? And I forgot, is it November type deadline?
They've been behind on it. They're like 6 months behind, so normally it's November, but I think it may not be until the spring, but we'll check up on that.
Yeah, and then, you know, you probably already did it, but in your backup for the shoreline protection thing, are you saying in there about what he just said about mangroves, how they're great carbon sequestration vehicles?
No, but I will when I write my staff report, so thanks, Brad.
no, I was, you know, especially after hearing Sue in the Jupiter Narrows, that's kind of what they want to do. And then I started researching mangroves, and I'm like, this is like an answer to a lot of the things that we talk about.
For
in
Florida in particular, our shoreline and carbon reduction, it's a big deal.
In Tequesta, we're fortunate enough to have a nice shoreline. You know, I don't know if there's, legalities with regard to planting behind people's, you know, houses or.
I mean, if you wanted to create a program for it, we could probably have some seed money for it and actually do the plantings for people that agree to do it behind their seawall.
Yeah.
Right? So we're actually doing that when we do these tree planting projects throughout the village, like an Adopt a Tree program. We'll actually pay for the tree and put it on someone's property for them because it's a public good. So we could probably create a similar type of program like that for mangroves, where we, you know, we say, hey, we've got X amount of money, $5,000 or $10,000 a year. Come apply for it and put some mangroves in behind your seawall.
Yeah.
And you know, it for all carbon, water quality, all these things, all the benefits for it.
You can even get the Jupiter High School Environmental Club to come out and plant them for you.
Yeah, we could.
Do they know how to do that?
I've seen a video. I saw a video of them doing it.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line.
Volunteer hours.
No, that's a great idea, and I was kind of brainstorming, and I'm like, well, could they do tax credits for people who go ahead and just put in the mangroves? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, according to the new shoreline protection, I don't know, act or whatever, that you're going to go get approval for. The only time they're required to put mangroves in is if they're doing
Construction.
construction.
Yeah.
So you have a bunch of people with maybe newer
Don't need to do
seawalls and never, and like their view, maybe, or whatever, you'll never get those people to move forward in putting mangroves unless there's some motivation. And what better of a motivator than some free money?
That's a great idea, and I mean, we could probably even try and find some partners too. What's the group? Is it Mang?
Mang.
We could probably try and partner with Mang or other groups to see if we get some people to chip in on it, but I love it, it's a great idea.
I reached out to them. I'm gonna try to get him to come in, maybe not, but we just keep playing phone tag. I don't know, it's the COO or CEO of that. So yeah, okay, well,
You know, in regard to the video that Dr. Arrington showed us, at the end was the Dover Ditch.
yeah.
Could mangroves be, I was very surprised about that undulating stream that they're building instead of the straight out to, you think, like for example, where the water discharges into the Loxahatchee River, not to block the flow, but on either side of the right-of-way, you could put mangroves there. And the other question is, at some point, the last weir, which is a mini dam basically, that's like a little waterfall that goes over, and it'll hold water eastward of that line until it's rained. Maybe it's okay to plant mangroves in there all the way to the Loxahatchee River, because the water will just flow through the mangroves to the river. I don't know if they have that kind of component in that project, but it certainly would slow down erosion, which is one of the things they showed as problems in that video.
And this is the reason I handed these out. If you look at the one question that we got on the citizen survey, what issues will have effect on the village either today or in the future? Are there any environmental related issues that concern you, Mr. or Mrs. Citizen? Number one, shoreline protection.
That's the high.
Okay, mangroves provide a level of shoreline protection. Water pollution. Something I didn't mention is mangroves do filter out polluted water. So that's number two. Plastic waste and trash we're going to talk about in a second, maybe with the waste management presentation. Climate change. All right, so 1, 2, and 5 are covered by one plan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Sure, it's screaming.
it's screaming something needs to be done, I think. My opinion.
Can I offer an alternative thought too, that I think it would help
Please.
us to prepare for, like, I'm totally aligned with what you're suggesting here. I think there's, if we can get efficiency in one focus area that can solve a lot of the things that are problem areas, that could be really powerful for us. I have my sister-in-law's a realtor, and I, have some exposure to some of her colleagues, I guess, realtor colleagues, and I hear oftentimes that when selling a home, if there's mangroves there, it's devalued.
Mm-hmm.
And it's devalued because of bugs and no-see-ums and, things that aren't pleasant to be outside in your backyard and enjoy it. And so I'm wondering if there's someone, an expert, who could help us address that issue, because it's going to be probably one of the things that pops up and says, oh, I don't want to put those in my backyard. Well, there could be perhaps an alternative to deal with the bug problem, if that's the main
Or the
problem.
blocking of the view.
Or blocking the
That's
view,
not
but
the
maybe
same
there's
stuff.
alternative
Yes.
design things or something that we could insert in addition to, the focus area.
All right,
Makes
so
sense?
that's a great point. I can call that guy from Maine. I mean, he's an expert at mangroves.
Yeah.
I would imagine these sort of things have come up. And
They're one
Nice
of the
rebuttal
only
points,
certified, licensed companies to be able to maintain the mangroves in the state of Florida.
Mhm.
And the other question would be, to roll off of what you're saying, Wade, is the view, and you're only allowed to cut them down so much every year. I think it's 6 inches. And what is that cost gonna bring homeowners if you put it behind their house, because that's an added cost. They're not gonna want it to take away their view, so they're gonna, try and maintain it
Yeah.
lower. So that's just something else to think
No,
about.
and believe me,
And I love
it's-
mangroves. I
Yeah.
think they're phenomenal, they're fascinating. They change saltwater to freshwater. I mean, they're just an amazing
Yep,
plant. But
yeah. And another kind of con, I guess, would be, so we're going to provide money through a grant for people who live on the water.
That's true.
I mean, it's,
Yeah,
I
we just gotta be
would
prepared.
ask.
We
So,
gotta be prepared for it.
there is gonna be some
Yeah.
pushback, I would imagine there always is, it seems. But I think just the idea is a valid one, and one that really hits, a lot of the things that are most concerning
Well-
to the citizens here in Tequesta.
You're right.
Yeah, and just by definition, I mean, if shoreline protection, is the number one thing, then focus on the shoreline is gonna be a priority. I mean, it's gonna, the funds, the finances, the focus, whatever is gonna be focused there, right? Because we didn't create this list, someone else created, right?
Yeah.
Our citizens created this.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, the low-hanging fruit there is finding areas like you were saying, Tom, that whatever you want to call that,
Right.
find areas that aren't behind a waterfront residential home, where we can perhaps implement new mangrove growth.
Yeah. That's a low hanging, yeah, and then the ones, that are behind the brand new homes that they tore down and built a new home.
That's
There's gonna be some
gonna be
practical pushback to that, headwinds to that.
Mhm.
If we could just prepare ourselves, and we probably can, prepare ourselves for how to address each one of those in a practical and safe and environmental way. Seems reasonable.
My question is that, I know the concerns are out there, but are they real or is it just a fear? Because, for example, if you had a seawall and you decided you're gonna plant mangroves in front of it, and if you just had a diligent, certified mangrove trimmer come on a regular basis, I don't even see the need as to why the mangrove would have to even go above the seawall that you have. And plus, if your house is level with your seawall, you are destined for a flood. But usually they're up higher, looking down at the water. So to me, I know they feel that way, or they don't like, we have many cases in Florida of people failing to properly
Trim and, yeah.
trim and
Care for it.
maintain their mangroves, but is the blocked view really, is it real or is it just fear? I don't know what the...
Yeah, I think one of the questions that I would ask an expert on mangroves is, what's the allowable trim height? Because maybe it's high enough where, yes, it does block. I don't know that answer either, but that would be the only scenario that I can think of, that they just aren't allowed to cut them that short, because it hurts the plant or it can't thrive as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a couple of, I know it has also something to do with the girth of the mangrove itself. So for example, there's some waterfront properties that the prior homeowners didn't maintain, and there are some scenarios where a mangrove got so mature that now it's prohibited from being trimmed back, and that ruins that waterfront lot in terms of view, in terms of that. So while there's a couple of houses that I know of that are along the river where they didn't maintain the mangroves, and now there is a pretty substantial mangrove tree that cannot be trimmed back because it's exceeded the level of girth that's allowed it. And now, yeah, I mean, nobody wants to be in their multi-million-dollar home and just staring at a big green thing. They want the beautiful sunrise or sunset and look out at the water. So, yeah, that is a concern. There are some lots that definitely get devalued because they, don't have as much of a desirable view of the backyard.
And I think there's a rule.
So there's something with the
Yeah,
girth.
no, I'm sorry.
I think there's a rule that says, look, if you've got an established patch of mangroves, and they're gonna grow over time.
Yep.
That you can only remove 33% of it
Yeah,
in
there's
any
definitely
given
a formula
year, or
on
something
it.
like that, So you don't kill it. I mean, you can trim it, but there's limits on
Yes.
which.
And there's something about once it achieves a X girth, it no longer can be trimmed back.
Yeah, I
or
think they
added
have,
back.
you can carve out a window then to look through them, no longer looking over them if they're
Yeah,
reached that
play with
size.
it, but yeah.
And I think if we get an expert to come out, we can kind of figure out ways to sell to the public, because you don't have to line your whole property with mangroves, right? We could probably create a program where it's like, hey, if you have 100 feet of waterfront frontage, put a little strip of 20 feet of mangroves, and that's still better than nothing, right?
Right,
So,
if anything, it could be a little border from your neighbor, or,
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna reach out to this guy from Maine, and I'll try to get him in here next month. Anything else on my pet project, mangroves?
No,
I don't-
think
Yeah, it's a great one.
you're right on target, though.
I don't know where everyone is on time. I do
Yeah.
personally have a 4:45 I have to make, but.
Okay, then real quick, follow-up discussion on waste management presentation. I put this in here with a link to the presentation that was given by
GFC.
Yeah. And one of the things he said during that presentation that blew me away, and I actually asked him, about it during the Q&A, is he said that a single stream recycle program, and this is their numbers, collects 30%, almost a third more recyclable material as compared to a double stream, which means the blue and the red containers.
I totally agree with that, or believe it.
Those were Stewart does it, and he just compared it, Stewart to, places that don't have that single stream recycling. So, and I know Jeremy had once said that we're kind of on a roadmap to getting a single stream recycling. Yeah.
I think we're just getting them.
Where it all goes in one.
We're getting a new trash can.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a new recycle. Okay.
Okay.
I'm wrong.
I would like to put this more in the forefront. It seemed also that he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, the vehicle that's used to collect from a single stream recycling bin is much easier, more cost effective than the current way they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because you've got the automated thing that grabs it and puts it in the truck, as opposed to, what I see out there, the guy gets out and dumps it manually.
Well, what I remember him saying too is that if one gets filled before, that truck has to go back, unload, even though the other one still had ample capacity to be filled, but once it kind of
Waste
eliminates
energy.
that factor.
So it makes sense to me if Tequesta is kind of on a roadmap to getting this single stream recycling, is there a way to make that happen quicker?
Well, the problem is that, yes, single stream definitely seems to be and probably is more efficient and effective relative to actual recycling production. But another thing that Jeff said though is once those trucks are filled, they have to take it to the solid waste authority for processing. And they're dual stream. They're not single stream. So that's the giant place
That's
where
the
the
giant
conveyor
one.
belts are going. Here's the paper conveyor belt. Here's the blue bin
They're
belt.
trying to change it to
And so
single.
if that doesn't change, they won't accept. Now maybe there could be an arrangement. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing it out. Maybe there's an arrangement where instead of Tequesta's recycling being sent to SWA on 45th Street, why not send it to wherever they take stuff in Martin County, which may in fact be single stream collection at their treatment plant for recycling. I mean, they're based in Hope Sound, so they're in Martin County, WM, Waste Management. So maybe there's a inroad? I don't know. But I think until you get SWA Palm Beach County to change the way they make it happen, you're stuck, I think.
Well, the collection.
Yeah,
side.
it seems.
Go ahead, wait. That's okay.
Sorry, I was just gonna throw a thought here, and it seems like the challenge is sorting, right? Sorting between cardboard and metal and paper and glass and all of that stuff, right? So somebody's gotta sort it. If consumers sort it, citizens sort it, then you're gonna get 30% less, because people don't wanna have multiple cans in their kitchen or whatever, to be able to do that on the spot. So if you have a single source, and then it has to be done at the processing center, and what you're saying is probably accurate, right? They haven't evolved to that point yet to be able to do that. So, like, how do we end up addressing that and figuring out where is the choke point in this whole thing? Because we want to recycle. I think that's the environmental right thing to do.
Right.
We want to increase our contribution of that, and then how do we do that in a way that we can perhaps accelerate the plan? And
Yeah.
maybe it is dependent upon new processing equipment at the site where they dump it, I guess it is, or
Yeah.
dispose of it, or maybe there's some other alternative.
Well, if they're currently doing it in Martin County, and I sort of remember him saying Stewart, so I'll just go with that. I've got to believe they have a sorting mechanism for a single stream source.
Yeah,
Why, it's all under WM, right? But do they operate county to county separately, or how does that?
well, keep in mind, in this part of Florida, Waste Management doesn't do, they don't run any, what do you call them, landfills. They're just the service provider for collection, okay? Now, they do in other places in the United States, they operate landfills, they operate processing plants like Palm Beach County Solid Waste Authority, but they don't do it here. So, I mean, you're basically stuck with whoever you're supposed to send your supply of recycling to. What do they use? They have dual stream, so you gotta be dual stream. But if Martin County, if Stewart's part of Martin County, and they're not big enough to have their own processing plant, so they're probably processing with Martin County Solid Waste Authority. And so if they're able to have single stream collection in Stewart, that tells me that the processor, Martin County Solid Waste Authority, is single stream. And so then it's theoretically possible by killing your contract with Palm Beach County Solid Waste Authority and adding your contract to Martin County Solid Waste Authority. Then Waste Management could collect and take it to Martin County instead of collect and take to Palm Beach County.
Isn't part of Tequesta in Martin County?
Yes.
Well,
Unincorporated.
Not,
No.
yeah, for mailing purposes, yeah, and address names and so, but for corporate limits, no. So it's an interesting, he also said another thing that got my eye. He says he was gung-ho about, we will help you in terms of getting facilities on commercial properties to facilitate the business owners recycling. And that's the first time I've ever heard him say that, and I've known him for 40 years. So that sounded great. No, I'd just like to find out, okay, how do we do it? Kind of thing,
Would it be worthwhile to have him come in, or would he even come in again? It's only been a few months.
Yeah, probably
That was
not.
like 2 months ago.
All right, so the question, like what you had just said, you want to just collect the questions, collect the requests, and we can just send it to him via email.
Sure.
And let him respond. And then maybe we, come back next month and it's an agenda item based on his responses.
I mean, I've noticed that we now have 2 trucks coming, one for the blue bin and one for the yellow. Have you noticed that?
No, I
Yeah,
didn't see that.
I've noticed
Yeah.
it.
So, I mean, it just seems like we gotta refine it somehow.
Since we're all gonna be going to the automated pickup of trash come October, you know, the way it stands now, the men that pick up yard waste and the guys and gals that pick up recycling, so they're still doing it the old-fashioned way, you know, like physically doing that. So it seems to me it's just a matter of time before all of it ends up being automated somehow, some way.
Yes.
Question is when.
All right, yeah, if you need to go, go. The last thing right here is, I'm going to this Florida Resilience Conference. Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. I didn't know if anyone had an opportunity to look at this. It is referenced here in backup, but if I'm going there, I want to go to sessions that are, you know, of interest or pertinent to this committee. I'd also ask Jay, with regard to staff input in the various talks and presentations. I've checked mine that I would like to go to. I just wanted to know if anyone here had something of special interest that I should attend and report back.
There
What
it
is
is.
that? Bring it
Boom.
up, Brad.
This is
Can I see
a,
it?
yeah.
Thank you. Oh, I gotcha. Huh.
I want to refresh my memory here. Oh,
Was
it's
this
like in
in our-
Sarasota.
It's in the package.
It's in Benita
Thanks,
Springs,
Oh, yeah.
near Naples. It's actually,
I
it started
know, I
today.
did, yes. I'm sure you did. Seriously, it's happening with me.
Well, it says smart planning, beach management, energy, and infrastructure. Oh, here we go, here we go.
Make sure you're right on the right day, because I'm not gonna be there today.
Creating
And I stamp to keep it from going to my work.
More resilient Florida would be good.
All right, guys, I'm gonna have to excuse myself.
Cocktail reception.
Yep,
That's a given.
I did check that.
That's a given.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Bye, Jill.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Right.
Jay, did you have things?
The village manager and I both looked at them and like everything looked interesting. Like we couldn't pare it
No
down.
priority.
Yes.
Prioritization. That's fine,
But
that's
it-
fine.
So that's on the, so oh, you're going there tonight, okay.
Yeah, so
all
I'll be
right.
there Thursday and Friday.
All right, let me look at Thursday, I'm still stuck on Wednesday.
So there's 4 tracks. There's smart planning, beach management, energy, and infrastructure. And in each one of those tracks, there's, you know, various presentations or sections that relate to the 4 track.
I mean, the only thing is like the county is mostly responsible for beach renourishment and all that stuff. So if there's ever an item where it's like beach renourishment or like, you know, mitigation of future flooding is one, you know, something like that might take priority over beach resiliency since we don't really even have any control
To
over
the
our,
beach,
our
yeah.
beaches, right?
Yep, no, understood.
Yeah, that beach, I can see that there's an old, perpetual, yeah, that's not gonna ever really be part of what we do.
Yeah, I mean, here's a hybrid living shorelines in South Florida. That looks good.
Yeah.
What time and day?
Oh, sorry, Thursday at 9:20.
Yep, that's one I've checked.
Thursday at 9:20.
D2.
Oh, there it is, yeah. Yep. Inlet impacts, cumulative tracking. Maybe resilience funding on 8:30 in the morning. I don't know if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
What's HMA stand for? HMA grants.
Yeah, I looked that up.
Hazard mitigation.
Yeah. Hazard
Ah,
mitigation
okay,
agency.
well,
I've checked that one as well.
cumulative substantial tracking. You know, in general, I would say anything that might help you with shoreline shoreline protection that's not beach.
All right.
And anything that might result in better information or ways to address greenhouse gas reductions.
All right. Wade, anything? Yeah.
Nothing
All right, now that-
specific.
This kind of gives me a general direction. I'll kind of stay away from the beach tract. Okay, well, if there is nothing else, let me get a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I move, I make a motion that we adjourn. Can you do it?
Second. Sorry.
I have a motion.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Amen.
All right. How did you keep these things so short?
I had boring subjects to deal with, like a comprehensive plan. You know,